Welcome, everybody, to Digital Transformation in Government 2021. Right now, this current presentation is given to us by Dr. Liam Peyton. He's the Vice Dean of Graduate Studies for the Faculty of Engineering and Professor in the School of Engineering, Design, and Innovation. He'll be talking about digital transformation and the training of highly qualified professionals. He'll going to highlight the University of Ottawa's graduate programs in digital transformation and innovation as an example of research and thought leadership, but is focusing mainly on exploring new directions for education delivery at the university in collaboration with government and industry, including distance learning, lifelong learning projects, and the like, that to develop industrial capacity. Now, Liam is a professor in the new School of Engineering, Design, and Teaching Innovation at the University of Ottawa, cross-appointed to the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. He is currently Vice Dean Graduate Studies for the Faculty of Engineering. Previously, he was director and founder of University of Ottawa's interfaculty PhD and master's programs in digital transformation and innovation. He's a principal investigator for the Intelligent Data Warehouse Laboratory of University of Ottawa. In addition to more than 15 years of experience of academic research and teaching related to digital transformation, he has more than 15 years of related industry experience and consulting. Without further ado, Liam, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's a real pleasure to be here talking to all of you. Hang on, I'm having technical difficulties getting started. There we go. So just in terms of agenda, I want to explain from the very beginning that this is not the typical sort of presentation I do at a conference. And it may feel at times like I'm just giving you one big ad for uOttawa, but I want to assure you that I'm not. I know for all of you out there, it's been a very different year. And in many ways, this has been a very surprising year at the Faculty of Engineering, where a whole lot of innovation has come our way. So I'm not so much advertising the University of Ottawa, I'm just sharing you some trends that have come steamrolling through the university that I think you'll find interesting. So hopefully that'll work. So I'm going to give you some context about myself, about Ottawa, digital transformation, and what is a university. And then I'm going to talk about uOttawa, but when I talk about these things, these are things that are happening globally and happening to universities across Ontario and Canada. Well, except maybe for the last one, that's special, the new School of Engineering, Design, and Teaching Innovation we have at the University of Ottawa. So Bob already mentioned some of this. I just want to highlight one or two things because it'll set some context. As Vice Dean, I'm in charge of all the graduate students and all the graduate programs in the Faculty of Engineering. And traditionally, universities have been focused on master's and doctoral thesis programs. And uOttawa does well. We're ranked 145th on the Times 2021 Global Higher Education. 145 might not seem much, but if you're talking about all the universities around the world, trust me, being in the top 200 is big news, and I'll touch on that more later. But most of my focus, even before COVID, was in what we call professional programs, course and project-based master's degree, because people are coming to university increasingly to get an advanced education that they're going to use in industry or in government or in their careers. I'm also on NSERC research, and when I use the phrase in the title, highly qualified personnel, when professors in Canada apply for their basic NSERC grant for the basic research that they do, there's many criteria that are applied, but one of the most important criteria that NSERC looks at when they fund professors is how many highly qualified professionals have been trained by working on their master's or PhD thesis with me. Because it's very important for Canada that universities, through their research, result in a highly skilled workforce. So we often forget just how special Ottawa is and what an international capital for tech it is. Ottawa has the highest number of residents with post-secondary education in Canada. And in terms of being a tech hub, We are the #1 jurisdiction in North America for the concentration of tech talent in this town. And before there was a lot of data analytics going on, I was in California in Silicon Valley in the 1980s. And when I came back to Canada, the general reaction was, you were in Silicon Valley? Why'd you come back? And I tried to explain to people that although Ottawa is smaller and doesn't have the money reserves that Silicon Valley and the Bay Area has, I would tell people I found the concentration of tech in Ottawa very similar to what I experienced in Silicon Valley. The number of startup companies, the number of entrepreneurs, the relationships with the university. And basically they measure what percentage of the workforce is employed in tech. And there's only 2 jurisdictions that matter. 3rd and 4th place in North America don't even come close to the first 2. And you guessed it, it's the Bay Area and Ottawa. And for many years, Bay Area was #1 and we were #2. For the last 3 years, we're #1 in North America for the percentage of the workforce that's employed in tech. And even going straight up comparison with big metropolises like Toronto and New York, we're now #14 in North America, and we're the fastest riser year over year the last 2 or 3 years. And if you think about our history, a lot of the tech, because this is the national capital and we have the federal government, has been on significant infrastructure. In the 20th century, up in Chalk River, we developed nuclear reactors that were sold around the world for nuclear energy. And the #1 location for medical isotopes, many of you might know, was at the Chalk River facility. When it got decommissioned a few years ago, it triggered a massive shortage of medical isotopes used for radiology around the world. And if you remember Bell Northern Research and Nortel and a company called Bell Canada International, we built some of the best phone systems around the world in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In fact, we built them across most of the Middle East and China. And you might not be aware of it, or maybe you are, but we're a major center for cloud computing and next generation networks. And there's a consortium with some of the biggest players in the world that have an excellent facility out in Canada. And of course, Shopify is well known around the world for enabling shopping online. So I want to give you my own particular spin on digital transformation. I'm not claiming this in some sort of, academic research way, but I really want to motivate you in a personal way, in an inspirational way, that digital transformation is about the 3rd revolution and what it means to be a human being. 1 million years ago, there started to be a major distinction between other animal species and humans when we developed oral communication and languages. It's only been 5,000 years that we've had written communication, but you could basically say our whole modern civilization was built on written documents, contracts, money, accounting, laws. The great 20th century was built without electronic digital communication. And since the 1960s, it took us a while to notice, but I think everyone's noticed, if not before now, certainly in the past year, the world's changed. Electronic digital communication, the way we communicate on social media. Like if you just think about, US presidents, when Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address, most people could read a transcript of it a day or two later as it got, sent by train or telegraph across the country. During World War II and the Depression, Franklin Roosevelt talked to the nation on the radio. It was really big when Kennedy and Nixon had the first televised debate in 1960. And, we can argue whether it's progress or not. Who'd have thought how much of running the world would be done by, tweets? And it changes the way things work. And if we dig into it, a lot of times when we're talking about digital technology, people think of automation. And automation is important and it's very powerful. And the huge gains in productivity, you know, the order of magnitude changes in productivity you get from automation are important. But that's largely the industrial age. That's largely what happened during the 1800s. Mass production, standardization, repeatable processes. What's happening now that we're wired or wireless is there's data, lots and lots of data. And it's the information age. And it's not so much that we get orders of magnitude improvement through automation. We get orders of magnitude improvement through information. So if you just use the technology to automate, you've got an order of magnitude improvement. But if you also use it to informate, collect data, and inform what's going on, you've got a huge doubling effect. And in this age, we have mass customization. Part of the reason we're having trouble talking in society is, especially in the United States, people are getting their news feeds customized so they hear only what they want to hear. And it's very startling to people that when they interact with someone that's got a completely different news feed set up than what they've configured on their phone, they're like from another planet. Their perception of what's real in the world is completely different. Constant feedback, constant change, and instantaneous feedback and instantaneous change are what's going on. I'm going to come at this again a couple of different ways just to get a feel for what's going on. About 10 years ago, there was a big thing about big data, and people talked about 3 V's. Huge volumes of data coming at us very quickly in a wide variety of formats. And that was exciting, and we could process it. But then people worried about veracity. Is the data accurate? Is the data true? Is it a fact or not? Because it's great to process all sorts of data, but if the data is meaningless, that's not going to help you. But even then, you could process all sorts of fun facts. People start to ask, okay, we have all this data, we're doing all sorts of things with it. What value are we actually getting out of it? And maybe if they figured that out and engineered that, things would be good. But remember that part about constant change? Once you got it figured out, everything changes. There's a new source of data. There's new types of data. There's different priorities. There's different calculations on the value. So variability starts to overwhelm things. A few years ago, I saw this diagram and I really liked it because it separated out the automation from the information. The technical part about processing volumes and varieties of data and data coming at you fast and ensuring the data is accurate, that's technical. There's this thing called visualization, which is great. You've taken all this data, you've processed it. How do you distribute it through your enterprise so that people can visualize what's going on based on the data that's coming in so that they can act on what they see? And that's organizational. Who should receive what data when? And value is put at the top. And it makes people think, yeah, what is our organization about? What are the values of the organization? What value is the organization trying to produce? And what's our vision for how we get to that value? And can we use the data, kind of like the dashboard on your car, so that you get all the feedback you need to know whether or not you're on track to achieving the vision you want to, the value you want to have. But to reorganize yourself that way, that's digital transformation. That's transformational change. And the typical way that human beings react to change, how did you feel last year when COVID happened, is chaos. What? What's going on? Hey. And that's where we have digital transformation, we have innovation. You need some insight in order to pull this together in a way that gets everybody on the same page. And that's basically what we're hoping to achieve through digital transformation and innovation. I'm going to come at it one more way before I get into universities and training of highly qualified people. I do my research in healthcare, and I spent a sabbatical in Norway. And they had an Intromat project where they were very interested in seeing how digital technology could be used to transform healthcare. In particular, they were focused on mental health. And they thought, hey, everyone's got smartphones, devices. We can put some apps on there, you know, computer guided training, reinforcement, collecting data on patients, staying in touch with where they are mentally. And the providers can provide these devices and apps to the patients, and that can help with the care. But the devices and the apps isn't alone. You've got to think about things organizationally. And, you know, in Ontario, the equivalent would be, you know, your local hospital, the Champlain region, which is the greater Ottawa health area in terms of a health region. There's a regional health authority for the greater Ottawa area. And in Canada, things are controlled provincially, so it'd be Ontario. You know, if you're going to all of a sudden be handing out devices and apps to patients, you want to make sure there's some quality of care. You want to make sure they're helping things, not making things worse. You want to know what's working, what's not working. And if you're going to start focus on treating people by leveraging technology, there's existing healthcare processes and there's existing information architecture. You're going to have to figure out how those fit in. And what you really need to focus on is making sure that as you do that, you're able to collect the data you need to see what's going on. Some of the data is for patients and providers, but some of it for dashboards to make sure that the healthcare system is working the way it should be with these new innovations. And hopefully, you've got some sort of goals that you're working towards. Is it simply to reduce the incidence of mental health? Is it to improve the incidence of mental illness? Or is it to promote mental health? You know, it's similarly with physical health. Is it simply about treating diseases or broken legs? Or is it about preventing diseases from happening by ensuring people are in good physical health? And it's easy to draw pretty pictures, but this is a huge transformation in how they want to practice medicine in Norway. So they start looking at how can you make this open, not just within the healthcare system, but to different stakeholders around the healthcare system, and have an online community and knowledge transfer and shared practices. And of course, there's all sorts of rules and regulations, which the purpose of the regulations need to be respected, but often they're phrased in archaic ways. They need to be updated. They need to be advocated for, accommodated, and changed in order to enable this transformation. All right, so one last piece of context. We've got this world of digital transformation and innovation. And we've got the university, and the university's been around for a long time. When things are a challenge at the university, I like to remind people that the university is a medieval institution. But more seriously, from about the time of the Renaissance to World War II, university existed long before that. They were created by the church during the Middle Ages. They were one of the few sources of knowledge that were maintained during the Middle Ages. But there was a real growth in universities starting around the time of the Renaissance, and oriented more towards theoretical research, the rise of physics and chemistry and thinking on philosophy and other things, but in a kind of ivory tower way. You know, a few smart people cut off from the rest of society, exploring theoretical ideas. And gradually, as we progressed towards World War II, they evolved into be kind of a finishing school for the elite. The upper class, nobility would spend their time at these institutions, and they'd get to know each other and they'd get exposed to great ideas. World War II was a transformation because of what a big difference physics and engineering made in that war. A huge leap between World War I and World War II. And it was also a time when there was much more money in governments, and government funding directed at research because it was seen as strategic in the national interest. And, you know, especially in the States, but we had the same phenomena here. In the States, there was the GI Bill, so that all the soldiers coming back from World War II all got sent off to, and the university became a place where the middle class got educated, or where you went to get educated so you could become part of the middle class. But since 2000, things have really started to change in a really accelerated way. All of the above, but now it's not about government-funded research, it's about industry-funded research, and it's about internships. It's about those highly qualified professionals not going on to be professors, but going on to take leadership roles in industry and in government. And increasingly in Canada, but also globally, it's about international education. University is no longer the place where the middle class, where you go to become middle class. Increasingly in Canada, graduate school is where people who want to immigrate to Canada come to get a degree and end up staying in Canada. In fact, it's a deliberate part of our immigration policy that we have a talent shortage in this country. And the governments have figured out that immigrants that get a Canadian degree do a much better, have a much easier time of integrating into Canadian society and getting good jobs and contributing to our economy than immigrants who got their degree outside the country. Part of that is the way we're regulated. We all heard the stories of doctors from other countries not being able to get licensed as doctors, so they're driving taxi cabs. The other thing that's happened is the university has become a center for innovation, and we have startup incubators. We literally want our highly qualified professionals not just to go out into jobs in industry, but actually to start companies coming out of the university. That's since 2000. But as I said at the beginning of the talk, the last year has been a huge acceleration in that. All of a sudden, our learning environments can be flexibly located and tailored. There's a lot of challenges with being online, but there's a lot of opportunities. And there's increasingly, the top universities are internationally branded as centers for talent development. I can tell you across Canada, the top universities are seeing their enrollment go up, and the smaller, more local universities are seeing their enrollments go down, because if you can be anywhere and you can go to any university, you're going to go to the one with the bigger international name brand recognition. Just to give you an idea of what's going on, in 2010 at the University of Ottawa, we had 750 graduate students. 700 of them were traditional thesis students, and there was a few part-timers working in industry that were professional program students, and they weren't doing a thesis, they were doing a course-based or project-based master's. When I became vice dean in 2018, in 8 years, we doubled. And we not only did we doubled, we'd switched from being mostly Canadian to being mostly international students. We still had about the same number of thesis students, but now we had just as many professional program students. And back in 2000, you had 5 main departments: chemical engineering, civil engineering, computer science, electrical engineering, and mechanical engineering. And up until 2000, you did your degree in one of those areas. In red, here's all the programs we have now. You can do a degree in sustainable and resilient engineering. You can do a degree in applied artificial intelligence. You can do a degree in advanced materials and manufacturing. All of these new since 2000, many of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new within the last couple of years. Well, that was getting to COVID. Here's what happened in the last year. After initially being worried that with all those international students, we'd see enrollments drop, enrollments have stayed steady. They've stayed steady because what motivates people to come to Canada for a degree has not changed. Ottawa's reputation as one of the top universities in the world for doing research hasn't changed. So the demand has stayed constant. All that's happened is we were growing quite quickly and we just leveled off during COVID. But in the last year, without trying to find these students, they came to us. In 1 year under COVID, we've added close to 450 new students. We've grown by like 30% in 1 year. And I'm going to talk about those initiatives. And in 1 year, here's the list on my to-do list. 2 of these have all been created, but they're all in the process of being created. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 10 micro programs. Why are there micro programs? Because we're not just focused, well, actually it's on the next slide, so why don't I go there? Why micro programs? Because it's not just about general education, it's about careers. Employers are looking for specialized skills, not just general degrees. Digital technology is changing ever more rapidly and business practice is being transformed by it. And there's this demand for talent and specialized skills that needs to be addressed. Employers have existing employees who are getting left behind as the technology changes, and they want to upskill or right skill their existing employees, and they don't want them to leave for 2 or 3 years to do a graduate degree. They want to see if they can be trained on the job. But it's not enough to do in-house training, and it's not enough to go to Coursera or Udemy or YouTube or vendor-specific options. They're attracted to going to the university. And in fact, some of those vendors themselves are attracted into partnering with the university because we have highly trained, qualified professionals that are experienced instructors that can mentor and guide students through the materials and provide insight on how to apply them. We have the infrastructure for rich learning environments. Even when we're COVID and we're at home, we have rich environments in the cloud that we can afford to build. And we have teams and internship and co-op opportunities so that you can learn in context. And most importantly, if the tools keep evolving and changing, a theoretical foundation gives you an understanding of the problems you're solving with the tools, that when the tools change, you can learn the new tools on your own as they appear on the market. And most importantly, what companies don't give you is a serious evaluation. If you're paying the company for a course, they're a little hesitant to fail you. Universities are required to maintain a certain level of quality. Hang on, I lost my mouse again, 1 second. Here we go. So here's one example. My dean calls me and says, hey, somebody thinks you should be looking to this company KeyPath. They want to give a presentation. And I go, oh my goodness, some company's gonna try and sell me some tools I don't want. But sure, I'll take the meeting. They blew me away. It's the information age. This company completely understands the internet, Google search engines, and they collect up the data, and their analytics told them that when they studied what Canadians were typing in their search engines, that there were a lot of working Canadians who were searching for a program they could complete online that would take their technical skills and help them evolve into a managerial role. And that when KeyPath analyzed the data and they went looking across Canada for which universities had programs that would do that, they discovered that UOttawa had a program called the Masters of Engineering Management that was arguably the best in Canada. And they said, we think there's a whole lot of Canadians that won't come to your campus that would love to take this program online, 2 courses a semester in their part-time while they're working. So they convinced us to offer the Masters of Engineering Management online. And we were hoping to get 20 students in the first cohort and maybe 50 students in the first year. We're now capped at 150 students only because we don't have the personnel to deliver it, and we're looking to reorganize things that we could probably grow this to 300 students a year. Similar thing happened. We had a relationship with the Center of Excellence for Next Generation Networks in Canada. Beautiful ecosystem created by a consortium of the top companies in the world to create a modern environment where you could test out new products to go into like a Google data center or a Rogers network operating center. Big, huge data, big, huge scalable things. And we partnered with them on research. And as part of their research internships, they had a boot camp training they did that they evolved into a set of materials to become a cloud computing specialist. We signed an agreement with them so that we could use that material in some of our graduate courses because we wanted to, train our highly qualified professionals so they could go into these top-end jobs in Canada. And we also marketed this courseware as something that could be available to working professionals through our Professional Development Institute. Well, completely unrelated to the world of networks, FX Innovation is a major company in Canada. It's one of the leading cloud computing companies. And most of its clients are insurance companies and banks and governments. And they were looking for, they were actually leading an initiative where they were lobbying the government and saying, we need to train more cloud computing specialists. And they worked out the roles in the training. Yeah, thank you, Bob. And they worked out the roles in the training that they needed. And they saw the announcement of our relationship with Sengen and the fact that we're using their materials. And we're now running a pilot with them over the summer with the plan to roll out complete training for a whole suite of cloud computing job careers that's going to be run out across many industries and many governments. Won't go into it, but we've got the same thing with cybersecurity. Fortinet I think is like a $9 billion a year company locally. They were looking for strategic university partners. They came and knocked on our door and they said, we have free content. We're looking for 5 partners worldwide. We want a major center in Silicon Valley. We want a major center in Ottawa. We want another one in Asia, another one in China. And we're now talking about developing a similar sort of set of courses with them. Robert, who's been amazing putting on this conference every year and hosting it this year. He's been a part of the team in digital transformation and innovation at uOttawa. He teaches for us. He's a uOttawa engineer in resident, but he's got his own company. He's an international expert on enterprise architecture, which is really critical for government. How do you ensure government business operations are supported by enterprise applications in a way that can be managed across the enterprise? And he's part of the international standards body, and he's got a sequence of courses that is a graduate micro program, but we're also working with him and the PDI to roll that out. And if I put a question mark beside the federal government, of all the examples I gave you, this is the one we're pushing. In all the other cases, people from around the world came to us and said, hey, Ottawa, you're pretty good. Hey, you got this expertise. Can we do something with you? Right now in the federal government, I would really love to have better partnership with the federal government. And you don't have to take what we have. Tell us what you want and let's work together. Last one, as I'm running out of time. Egypt came to see us. Or rather, Egypt had a national initiative to build the next generation of electrical engineers in Egypt. Egypt wanted to be the hub for all of Africa. And they went out and they looked for what were the best universities in North America to see which one could deliver the training they wanted for their engineers in Egypt. And uOttawa was not the highest ranked, but we were ranked high enough that we were in consideration. We were the most agile and willing to work with them. And we actually had a Zoom signing meeting with the Minister for Communications, Information Technology from Egypt, the President, Jacques Frémont of the university. And we're halfway through that and we're training 150 students this year. I'm running out of time. Here's a few thoughts I want to leave you with. After experiencing this wave this year, I've come to realize that the quality of international students we attract and the quality of the international agreements that the university can participate in is directly related to the international academic reputation of the university which ironically enough, since these are mostly professional program students and the agreements are most about professional program training, is largely based on our research quality. How good are our profs internationally? Are they leaders in their field? Well, within Canada, the quantity of our domestic students and the quantity of research we're able to do is directly related to the national reputation of the faculty. The quantity of research is based on how much funding can we get, and that's largely based on industrial collaborations because most research money from the government is tied to matching funds from industry. But the opportunities for our students is directly related to the reputation of our programs, largely based on how well employers know us and how well we provide the talent we're looking for. Ottawa is one of the top centers in North America as a source of tech talent. These are the 5 research themes where we're trying to be expertise. You can see in the bottom one is technology for digital transformation of society. We've created a new school of engineering design and teaching innovation that's all about experiential learning, lifelong learning, reinventing curriculum. We've got a whole suite of courses that all engineers can take that cut across, that give them the skills they need to be effective in their careers. And this new school only has interfaculty, interdisciplinary programs, and the PhD program is the PhD in digital transformation and innovation. And it's a collaboration between the Faculty of Arts, especially around policy, but also around creativity and the visual arts for user experience design, and a partnership with management to get the business aspect and the data analytic aspect of it. We've got a professional development club, and we have huge infrastructure for prototyping and advanced manufacturing, as well as stuff in the cloud. And we've got a maker launch, which is an incubator funded by our alumni, angel funding, as a transition from students and professors in our graduate schools with ideas to help fund them to make them ready to launch their startup company. Just to finish off the story and the link to Egypt, every year we have a competition and there's funds awarded and 2 companies are selected to go into this program. One of them was an Egyptian student who qualified for the program, even though he'd gone back to Egypt, and his company was funded, which was interesting because when we do our masters with Egypt, and they're all based in Cairo as they take this thing, a big part of their program is they must complete a graduation project. And they're partnering with companies like Microsoft and IBM, as well as Egyptian companies, as well as startup companies in Egypt. And I was working on this project and I knew nothing about what the Maker Launch was doing. And halfway through the year, when we were talking and planning out the projects with Egypt, we discovered that an Egyptian company won startup funds from the uOttawa Maker Launch. And so we introduced them to the people in Cairo, and they're one of the startup companies that has projects for the next generation of engineers in Egypt to work with. So I don't think I did too bad for time, Bob. Why don't we stop there for some questions?
Sounds like a great idea. There we go. Okay, super. I'll just go down and get into the question screen here. Just a second, sorry. Okay, good. To what extent are employers ready to employ your grads and international students?
Oh, perfect question for me. I didn't talk about it because I ran out of time. I've created a course called Industry Internship Project. So all the students sign up for it because they think they're going to get an internship with the industry. Companies get interested because they're like, oh, there's an opportunity for us to leverage students on projects. And the reason I did that is there's a huge gap, even for Canadians, but especially for international students, going from the school environment to the work environment. And companies are very hesitant and very picky and choosy and careful about who they choose to work with. And what we've done is by creating this project, we're making it as easy as possible for companies to engage with us. We basically say to companies, hey, you got an idea, you might be interested in having someone work on it, talk to us. In fact, I have leaders in the professional development club talk to them. What skills are you looking? What's the project? We recruit amongst the students and find who has the best resumes. And if they don't have the right resume, we work on doing the training, the specific just-in-time skill training they need to be useful on that project. If not this semester, the next semester. And the students get course credit, so it's an opportunity for the students to get real experience working on a real project on a volunteer basis for which they get course credit. And it's designed to be as flexible and as easy for employers to get to know the students and see what's going on, for the students to get trained up. I have a couple of startup companies we're working with. One of them, they basically now have it set up that they take, even though they're a startup company, they take 3 to 5 interns a semester. Of those 3 to 5 interns, I think on average, 2 get a full-time job after they graduate. 2 easily get a full-time job elsewhere. And the other student learns exactly where they are and why they're not succeeding in their career. And they have an opportunity to correct it while they're still at the school. And they do eventually find a job. So there's a great hesitancy for companies to hire students and international students because they're new, they're not sure what they're getting. But we've got such a great culture at uOttawa. And the students that are immigrating to Canada have such an amazing work ethic that once they get to understand the culture, once they get to understand the way things work, once they get the industry-specific skills they need, we're finding that employers are really, really happy with the program we have.
Okay, that's great. People can just basically put questions in the box adjacent to their screen. We got another question here. Excuse me. One of the issues of digital transformation is that the need for skilled cybersecurity leaders continues to outpace the supply in higher education. Why are Canadian colleges and universities still lagging behind in training graduates in this field?
I think the answer is because the whole world is lagging behind. So I wouldn't, it's very easy to put ourselves down. And what we really should do is view it as an opportunity. What can we do to train better? As I mentioned, Fortinet is a global company and they see this as a worldwide problem. And they recently put all their training materials freely available on the internet because they want to encourage people to become cybersecurity professionals because there's such a huge demand and they see such a shortage worldwide for it. And look, as everyone goes online and everything becomes data intensive, cybersecurity is going to be critical for every single organization. But when you put the training materials online for free, you've got to be a very motivated, self-reliant individual to muck your way through that. And even then, how do you actually get the expertise or the skill to know how to apply it in practice? So they put it online, it's freely available for all universities to use, but we're negotiating with them right now that we're going to be one of 5 centers in the world where they're basically going to set up exactly what I talked about, an onboarding training program. We're taking some of their materials, incorporating them into their courses. We're designing projects and that students get credit for to get their expertise up. And then when they're ready, the best ones will get an opportunity to intern at Fortinet. And the ones that intern at Fortinet will either end up with jobs at Fortinet or there'll be a whole host of companies across the economy waiting to hire them. So I think the answer is if Canadian schools are lagging behind, it's because they haven't changed the way the university or the college works and how they interact with companies and how they interact with employers. And so I was a little, rude and forward later when I said, I'd love to talk more with the federal government. I really mean it in the most positive way. We should be partnering. If I can work with the Egyptian government, there should be one or two things that uOttawa does that's relevant to the federal government that we can work with the federal government. And look, we already work with the federal government in the traditional ways. We have people doing graduate studies, we have people doing research, but actually look at a systematic way, you know, like they've done in Egypt, like Fortnite's doing, like FX Innovation is doing, where nationally do we have a shortage? And what infrastructure and training programs and what's our long-term view of how to get there? I think one of the things we've learned from COVID is, with the collapse of communism in 1990 and neoliberalism and free enterprise principles, all very valid and very good, we got to thinking that money in the market determined everything. I think COVID taught us there is still something called national infrastructure. There is still something like national supply chains. And it's not enough to let the market take care of things. We need to plan what sort of a world do we want to live in Canada? What do we need for cybersecurity? What do we need for health safety? What do we need for PPE? And do some strategic planning and rethinking about how we partner with universities, how we partner with government, how we partner with companies to achieve that. And I can't help it. I got to put one more little plug in. I forgot to mention that Center for Entrepreneurship and Engineering Design, you've all heard about, you know, how Canada and the States have lost manufacturing capacity. That's manufacturing capacity. It's a teaching environment, but under COVID in the first few months, we had student volunteers transform that into a manufacturing facility for face shields and masks. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Just a quick one too, is you're talking about basically industry and academia. There's also professional associations.
Absolutely.
I know, such as the ones like Osaka, they're basically pushing cybersecurity. They have their certified information security manager. They have certifications on cybersecurity, some of the fundamentals and some of the specialties. It would be interesting. So there's another dimension to it that could be leveraged to come up with a holistic approach to training cybersecurity professionals.
Robert, you're speaking as if you were someone that sat on a standards group body.
Well,
absolutely. Why does Fortinet come to us? Why don't they just operate their own training facilities around the world? Well, it's like I said, the university has a role to play as the leader in quality of education, standardization of education. But we do accreditation for programs. All our engineering programs are accredited so that they're recognized, so that our students can become professional engineers, but it's not keeping up. Being certified as a professional engineer doesn't mean you're qualified to be a cybersecurity expert. And I think it's really important in key fields like cybersecurity, there's some sort of international establishment of standards, or at least a national establishment of standards. And so that you have, and this is where the role of government comes in, that you don't just have the universities and you don't just have the industry, but you've got some sort of regulation and standards that you're working towards that gives some sort of commitment and consistency of quality, and above all, trust in the infrastructure that we're trying to build. It can't just be completely market-driven. Market-driven is important, but it can't do it all on its own. Or as I like to tell people who are capitalists and think capitalism means free enterprise, capitalism got created by regulation. The whole reason you have companies is there's regulations that specify what it means to be a company. And so, yes, let's have market forces, but let's put some thought into how we regulate and plan out what we want for our lives and for our countries.
Now, remembering that the audience is global, the next question is, can uOttawa pioneer the creation of digital transformation centers in other countries who lack digital transformation technology?
Well, in fact, this is our relationship with Egypt. And I don't want to imply that Egypt doesn't have digital transformation technology. Cairo University is one of the top universities in the world. But we have a little bit more infrastructure here, and we're a little bit further ahead on digital transformation. And when I'm interacting with Egypt, I've made it very clear to them, and they appreciate this. I'm not doing this program with Egypt so that we'll train Egyptian engineers for the next 100 years. We've got a 3-year contract. Maybe it'll be a 5 or 10-year contract, much like with phone systems in the 70s, it's a transition phase for them where we'll provide a service to them, but the main part of the service is to help them build up their infrastructure. When we ran the projects, they said to me, oh, are you going to figure out all the projects and so line up the projects and give the students what to do? And I said, well, I could do that, you know, and you guys are paying us a lot of tuition, so maybe I should do that. But I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think I do a much better job of forcing you to figure out the projects, forcing you to make the relationships with companies in Egypt, and we'll just help advise you as you do it. And when they understood why I was going to do less than they expected and they were going to do more than they were expected, they thought they were getting even more value for their money, because that's exactly the relationship they wanted with Canada.
Well, that's great. And all the international attendees, I mean, if you don't, like I said, we're here to help, and I think it's something to understand. Another question is,
actually, if I add one more thing, not only are we here to help, but I can tell you, once my dean saw what we were doing with Egypt, both of us said, they're forcing us to do a better job of training highly qualified professionals. We better start copying what we're building for Egypt and delivering to Egypt. And then the next thing we said is, why aren't we doing that for Canadian industry? So it's very much a mutual give and take. By partnering, we learn more about each other and we both get stronger.
And the next question is, why is a multidisciplinary education experience critical for the future workforce enabling digital transformation?
It's actually critical for any engineering degree, but it's really critical for digital transformation, because one of the focuses of the new school is on design. And one of the criticisms, so one of our former deans is very active in Engineering Canada and has a lot of exposure internationally. And the feedback we get from industry, especially from the industry people who have operations in other countries, is Canadian engineers are top-notch technically. Absolutely nothing to complain about in terms of the technical skills they get in their degrees. But they're narrow and they're hard to interact with. They're lacking in communication skills. They're lacking the ability to interact with other experts. And sometimes, frankly, they're just a little bit arrogant. And I can say this because I'm an engineer. And we need to be able to, you know, when you have digital transformation, you no longer build a machine that sits over in the corner and you turn it on and it operates. You're actually creating a new online environment where everything's connected. One of the two fields in the digital transformation innovation that are core are, once you get past the basic technology, is analytics, which is the data part, but user experience. If you're engineering an environment that's going to change the user experience, you need to know about health issues, right? If we're designing environments where I'm in my basement with my laptop and stuff, there's health issues around how we design things. There's legal issues around how we design things. There's business issues around how we design things. There's policy issues. So it's really critical that you especially get, you know, I really like the fact, like actually the digital transformation innovation program, any professor from any faculty can participate, but it's run by the three main faculties: Faculty of Arts, Telford School of Management, Faculty of Engineering. And we get three very different perspectives from those three faculties. And it always brings a deeper awareness of what the right way to design a solution to things is.
That's great. And now for our last question, what sort of services do you provide in higher education as continuing education, especially available in the evenings?
Excellent question. A lot of our graduate courses, especially the graduate courses we're going to have in the micro programs, are deliberately scheduled after 4 p.m. So a lot of our classes are available in the evenings. Through the Professional Development Institute, they are completely designed around working people to be flexible with working people. And in particular, that program we designed with KeyPath for Engineering Management is an online program that's, a lot of the material is asynchronous, but with appropriate flexible times to connect with different people. And basically over the last year with COVID, we've had students with a 12-hour time difference in China, a 9-hour time difference in India. We've learned to be very flexible and accommodating for, as I say in the university, when we plan to go back to campus, we're going back to campus, we're not going backwards. We've learned a lot of things that work better. We can leverage the technology to be flexible about people's time. So check out the Professional Development Institute. It's really had a reboot in the last year or two. And there's a lot of programs that they're putting on that are actually coming from the Faculty of Engineering. And one of the other things we do is, for certain courses, if you take them through the Professional Development Institute, you're actually getting the same material that's in our graduate courses. And if you do 4 or 5 modules through the Professional Development Institute, in certain cases, we will recognize that as being the equivalent of a graduate course. So you can literally go from 1 or 2 courses at the PDI to having the equivalent of 1 graduate course, to doing a micro program that's 2 or 3 graduate courses, to completing a master's degree that fits and accelerates and takes you to the next level in your career.
Yeah, just as an example, as a prof, I've yet to teach since 2016. I've always taught in the evenings.
Yes.
Okay, so basically it allows a full day of work, and then you can sit there and enjoy. And I've got people from Kathmandu in the last course and all over Asia, and they listen to recordings with the new software. So it's a very flexible learning environment. But listen, thank you, Dr. Peyton, thank you ever so much for taking the time to present. I've really enjoyed the presentation, as I'm sure the entire audience has. And anyways, it's greatly appreciated to take the time out of your incredibly busy schedule. When I got your presentation at 3 o'clock in the morning, I realized you've got a few other things on your plate.
All I'll say is all professors are former students.
Okay, for that. Well, thank you ever so much. It's been great.
It's been a real pleasure, Bob. Always a pleasure. And it's just great, these conferences that you put on. And I should say to everyone, as part of the partnership, Bob is very active in a lot of professional organizations and creates a lot of events. And he always makes sure to reserve seats and put the word out on campus that our students are able to attend a lot of these events for free and interact with international experts, which is a real important part of their learning experience at UOttawa. So thank you, Bob.
Okay, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure. Well, anyways, with that, I'll just end up this particular session. I'm going to close the session in a few moments. The next session is going to be Joanna Murphy. She's a director in the Office of the Auditor General, and she'll talk about procurement and complex projects. It might not sound exciting, but believe me, it's one of the major causes of challenges in basically digital transformation in government. Just getting the stuff, and that includes people, and that includes all resources to create the capabilities that are needed in time, in accordance with a plan. Okay, so thank you very much. So I'll just sit here and wait for the lag time for the live to finish, as before I close it, because I need to have 15 seconds of silence before we can close. So thank you very much for attending, and please don't miss Joanna's. And subsequent to that, the cyber audit framework put on by the Communication Security Establishment, and also the Center for Cybersecurity in the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity are going to be participating in that. I would really listen to the next 2. I think they're going to be very important for people in government. Well, thank you very much. And now we'll wait for our 15 seconds of silence. Okay, thanks, Leanne. Take care.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for the question.